Welcome back. And the President Fattah al-Sisi said on Thursday that strong bonds and common aspirations and challenges shared by the African and Russian peoples create a common ground for boosting the African-Russian cooperation. The President was speaking at the first session of the Russia-Africa Summit being held in Sochi. The session was co-chaired by President al-Sisi and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin. Details in this report. President Fattah al-Sisi confirmed on Thursday that African and Russian peoples share strong bonds, aspirations and challenges. Addressing the first general session of Russia-Africa Summit, the President said that these bonds prove the need to enhance the African-Russian cooperation. The President reiterated the need to support the African Union policy of reconstruction and development after settling conflicts and creating resilience to prevent the recurrence of conflicts and to strengthen the state's institutions to be able to protect their countries. El-Sisi said that combating terrorism is a priority for the international and African peace and security agenda, reaffirming that the battle is hard and complicated. He added that a comprehensive confrontation to terrorism is the best way to uproot it. President el-Sisi invited Russian President Vladimir Putin and African heads of states to participate in the first Aswan Forum for Peace and Sustainable Development to be held on the 11th and 12th of December 2019. He also called on them to take part in the forum's discussion to enrich the debate on the main issues. For his part, Putin said that Russia-Africa Summit is the start of a cooperation between the two sides. He noted that upgrading the level of economic trade and social cooperation is one of priorities to Russia. Putin said that President el-Sisi, as the current chairman of the African Union, played a key role in preparing for the Russia-Africa Summit. President el-Sisi and his Russian counterpart co-chaired the first general session of the Russia-Africa Summit being held in the city of Sochi. The Russian president expressed his concern over the state of instability in Africa, pointing to a number of internal conflicts as well as political, economic and social crises. Putin said that Africa is confronting terrorism, extremist ideologies, crossing border crimes and piracy, adding that some countries are facing the consequences of the so-called Arab Spring, which led to instability in North Africa.
Dear viewers, and for more on the African-Russian Summit, we're joined over the phone by former Assistant Foreign Minister Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi. A very good day, sir.
How are you?
Sir, this is the first summit of its kind, of course. What is the importance of boosting the Russian-African relations?
It is a sort of marketing for Africa, marketing for Egypt, and the interrelation between African countries, and also between the African countries and Russia. And it is one circle of a chain of movements for the Egyptian foreign policy. Mind you that our president was in Tokyo twice last month for the G20 and the TICAD, the relation between Africa and Japan. He was in France also for the C7. He was in the United Nations for marketing for Africa also, and in his speech he was defending the need of Africa for more investment and more fair trade. And here we are in Russia, which is a new coming large economic power, where we are trying to attract Russia more and more towards Africa, because the presence of Russia up till now in Africa is not enough. And even the president of Russia, President Putin, mentioned that 40% of the relations of Russia with Africa is coming through Egypt. So the room is enough for more and more cooperation in the field of investment, in the field of exchange of trade, exchange of experience also. Besides that, it was mentioned, of course, the presence of Russia in the Suez Canal zone in order to invest more and more in Egypt, in many industries, in many ways to use the premises of Suez Canal as a way, a waterway for the international trade. The agenda is really very rich, and we hope that this will end for more and more benefits for Africa, for Egypt, and for Russia.
Sir, what are the main issues on the agenda of the summit, sir?
We have three tasks there. First, what we are talking about the relation between Africa and the donors. The second, it was an intra-African relations where our president met many of his counterparts. The most important also is the meeting between President Sisi and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia. I hope that this will lead for more and more cooperation between Egypt and Ethiopia. The third is our relation with Russia and the old Soviet Union bloc, because this part of the world, it was occupying more than 60% of our foreign trade.
Sir, what are
What
the potential fields of cooperation?
Pardon?
What are the potential fields of cooperation?
It is very important. That's why I'm mentioning that this part of the world, it was 60% of our foreign trade. It was deteriorating after they left us after the peace process led by Egypt, but now they are coming slowly but surely. And this is a very big market. We should occupy it. We should come back to this market and invite also whether Russia or the eastern countries of the Eastern Europe to come back to our market in order to exchange benefits and exchange views, not only in trade and investment, but also in the international interest in whether it's political or security interest.
Sir, former Assistant Foreign Minister, Ambassador Gamal Bayoumi, thank you very much, sir, for your informative knowledge, sir.
And ahead of holding the first general session of Russia-Africa Summit, President Fattah al-Sisi met with Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed. Presidential spokesman Ambassador Bassam Radi said that the meeting was held on the sidelines of the summit being held on the Russian city of Sochi. Their talks covered the file of the Ethiopian Renaissance Dam in light of the latest development. In this regard, Abiy said that his latest statements were taken out of their context, reiterating his full appreciation and respect for Egypt's leadership and people. He said that his statements included Ethiopia's commitment to establish the dam without causing harm to the downstream countries. He confirmed that the Ethiopian government and people have no intention to cause any harm to the interests of the Egyptian people. The Ethiopian Prime Minister said the stability of Egypt and Ethiopia is an added value to the whole continent. He reiterated commitment to what has been declared by his country about sticking to the path of negotiations to reach a final agreement. The presidential spokesman said that President el-Sisi told the Ethiopian Prime Minister that Egypt showed understanding for Ethiopia's developmental needs. However, Egypt is determined to preserve its historical rights in the Nile water. The president said that Ethiopia should not seek to achieve development at the expense of Egypt's historical rights. El-Sisi said that the establishment of the dam should strike a balance between interests of the upstream and downstream countries and should not be a reason for conflict.
Earlier on Wednesday, President Fattah al-Sisi and Russian President Vladimir Putin held summit talks in Sochi on the sidelines of the Russian-African Summit. During the meeting, the two presidents stressed the significance of reaching a peaceful solution in Syria, Libya, and the occupied Palestinian territories in accordance with international references, with the aim of achieving peace and stability in the Middle East region. President al-Sisi and the Russian president discussed a number of regional and international issues of common concern, in addition to ways and means to strengthen bilateral relations and cooperation. President al-Sisi expressed Egypt's keenness to boost the partnership ties with Russia within the framework of growing relations, which culminated in inking the comprehensive strategic partnership during his latest visit to Moscow. President Sisi praised bilateral cooperation in various domains, as well as the joint project being currently implemented, especially the Russian Economic Zone in Egypt and Al Dab'a nuclear power plant. President Sisi also said Egypt is ready to enhance trilateral cooperation among Egypt, Russia and Africa within the framework of the presidency of the African Union. For his part, the Russian president praised President Sisi's participation in the summit, which aims at deepening the Russian-African ties. The Russian president also praised Egypt's key role in the Middle East and Africa. The Russian president held a dinner banquet for President Sisi and the African leaders on the sidelines of the Russia-Africa summit.
Also on Wednesday, President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi addressed the inaugural session of the Russia-Africa Economic Forum in Sochi. During his speech, President el-Sisi affirmed that the Russia-Africa Economic Forum is a good opportunity to enhance cooperation between Russia and Africa and pushes forward to the 2063 Sustainable Development Agenda in Africa. President el-Sisi, who co-chairs the Economic Forum with Russian President Vladimir Putin, referred to Africa's keenness for integration, highlighting the significance of investment in human resources, notably youth represents 65% in Africa. The President also noted that Egypt had achieved tangible steps on the path of political and economic stability. President el-Sisi reiterated that the Russia-Africa Economic Forum is a big opportunity to discuss various important economic files. President el-Sisi also called on Russian businesses to invest in Africa. For his part, Putin said his country is among the top 10 importers from Africa. The Russian president said that trade between Russia and Africa has more than doubled in the past 5 years to more than $20 billion.
President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi and his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin held Wednesday a mini-summit with the heads of the African economic blocs in Sochi. During his speech to the summit, President el-Sisi reiterated that Egypt is exerting utmost efforts to achieve the African economic integration and to implement infrastructure projects in the continent. The president also stressed the significance of the African-Russian cooperation in various domains during the coming period. President el-Sisi said that the African economic blocs are supporting the joint African action and integration in the continent.